Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. Today we have Shelby, and I had so much fun with this conversation. Oh my God, it was so much fun. We actually decided that we need to be friends. So it was a really good one. But she's been through a lot, and she is now a coach, and she helps with boundaries, things that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with making, right? But listen to our conversation. Oh my goodness, this girl is a badass. Wait until you hear her story. She's just done incredible things. Without further delay, here's Shelby and I.
Hi, Shelby. How are you?
Hi, Jackie. I am so good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. My name is Shelby. I am 25 years old. I live in El Paso, Texas, and I've lived here my whole life. So I have my daughter who is 8, and then I have my stepson who's 8.5. So they're 6 months apart, almost to the T. I have my husband, not husband, because at this point we're married. So we'll wait to make all of that official once the time feels good, and we really want to have like that destination wedding. So we're waiting for all of,
Nice.
all of that to fall into place.
Nice. And
But
that is, I would 100% recommend that as a person that did not do a destination wedding. I'm looking back and like, oh God, we should have just done a destination wedding.
yeah, it's funny because it almost feels like it that's so impossible. And with as much as weddings are here, I just don't feel like I don't have enough people in our lives, either side of us, for us to have some huge wedding. So for me, I was even thinking like maybe one day we'll just take off to Hawaii with the kids and we'll just do it ourselves. I don't
Yeah.
know, like that we're very non-traditional in that sense, and it just
Hmm.
that feels so us. I'll still have my dress and my ring because I
Yeah,
want
of
the ring, I
course.
want my dress, but I can totally live without everything else and almost gives me anxiety, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does. I planned a wedding. I totally know. I totally
Yeah.
know. Okay, so after that,
So from from this point, like I have been with my husband for 6.5 years, and we went when my daughter had just turned 2. Before that, my daughter and I, it was just her and I, first couple years of her life. My parents were both alcoholics, and I lost my mom when I was 16. So right after I had lost my mom, I had found out that I was pregnant. So I was already about to graduate, and I had my scholarships for sports medicine. I was finally getting out just of the chaos, and I found out I was pregnant. So that definitely changed everything.
dang.
And it was just her and I. I'm very thankful for that, though. Again, I grown up with a lot of trauma, having both my parents as alcoholics. I didn't have, a whole lot of a childhood. And when I was 9, my brother, who I was super close with, he was more of a dad to me than my actual dad. He was assaulted and he almost died.
Oh my goodness.
So at that point, it was really what little childhood I had was pretty much gone. And I look back and I notice that this is where a lot of the trauma started to kick in. And not even just from that circumstance, but once my brother did make it out, and thankfully he's still with us, my mom's drinking had really taken a turn for the worst. So she went from being a social drinker to drinking on her days off from work.
Hmm.
And once her mom had gotten really sick, my grandma, and that set her back again. I think unfortunately my mom had a lot of trauma herself, and we all know that mental health was not what it is today
Yep.
back then.
Yep.
And I look back and I understand that, it wasn't just, oh, she liked to drink warm vodka in the garage. She was battling her own demons, her own sickness, her own mental struggles. And once she had lost her job, she started drinking around the clock and had not stopped. We were in and out of rehabs, in and out of the hospital with her. And there was one night, and my dad had called us and said, your mom's sick again. And it almost felt normal at that point in life.
Yeah.
I did not live with my parents anymore. I had been in and out since I was 11, but officially out around 13, 14. So my brother
Where
and
were
I
you?
went.
Where did you
hmm
live?
I lived with my brother. I
Okay.
did. So I had moved in with my brother. Yeah.
Wait,
In
how
and
much
out with
older
him.
is your brother than you?
So he is 15 years older than I am. And then I have my
Oh, okay.
sister who's
Okay.
9 years older. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're all pretty far apart.
Mhm.
Which is funny because we all kind of had a different life in a sense with our parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
So it was kind of crazy, but between my sister and my brother, they really didn't take they didn't have much of like a sibling aspect. They were kind of my parents. I got along better with my brother, which is why I lived with him. Not so much with my sister. I'm closer with her now.
Mhm.
But once we were called and told, your mom's sick again, we didn't realize that that was going to be the last time, and it was. They were not able to save her. And that was hard because, now being a mom, I see like, oh, I'll jokingly be like, man, this makes me want to drink. I don't really
Mhm.
drink. I don't drink at all, actually. But I get it because not only is being a mom hard, but then you have your own shit to unpack. You have your
Yeah.
own trauma to unpack. And, not we're not all built the same. And I was able
Mhm.
to go to therapy. I was able to get some help. So it was really hard. It was definitely really difficult growing up in that environment, so to say, because once I lost her, I realized, man, my mom genuinely did love us. She did the best that she could. It's just she was sick.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's
So,
sad.
yeah, but honestly, I had my daughter at 17 and it turned my life around. I know I had a lot of backlash from it. It was, baby having a baby, or my dad had called me the first 6 months and said, get an abortion. I mean, he told me every single day. I knew that call was coming and it was telling me he was going to tell me to get an abortion until I finally lost it. It was about 6 months. And he said, if you don't stop telling me this, you're never going to see me. You're never going to see this baby. And I didn't hear it again.
Mhm.
My family did want me to give my baby to my brother and my sister-in-law. And for about the first 2 months, I had felt like I had to. They had made it seem like if I kept this baby, my life was over. I was going to ruin her life. And it was just, I was basically flushing everything down the toilet. And that was so far from true because I look at it now and I never would have let that happen. I can sit here and cry about my family or, cry about the circumstances, but for what? Because that's not going to do anything. And I'm an
Mhm.
adult with
Yeah.
a child. I knew that the second I had her, it was no longer about me. It was about her. And that came
Mhm.
down to everything. My trauma, I had an eating disorder that nobody even knew about from middle school until I was pregnant. I was self-harming. I was turning to drugs, to alcohol, to, attention, to, partying with people, doing things that kids should not be doing,
Yeah.
even like, again, starting at about 12.
Yeah,
So
because
it,
your parents
mhm.
were preoccupied with other things and you hadn't lived with your brother yet, right? So it was like, or even if you did live with your brother, I'm sure it was like kind of a different circumstance, even if he was 15 years older than you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I got away with a lot of things because my dad was not home. I'll give it to him. He worked really hard, but he was never home. It's not like he
Hmm.
was coming home and tucking us in at night. And my mom was doing her best. She worked weird hours and typically she was home like, before we went to sleep normally, but that wasn't always. She took the schedule that she had to make sure that she could take us to school. She would pick me up during her lunch break, rush, shove something in her to keep going, and then she would rush back to work. And that was what she had to do because although she wasn't a single mom, she didn't have that help and support from my dad, and they couldn't afford for me to go to a daycare, and there was nobody else to do it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's a lot. I mean, I feel like even moms now, we do what we have to do in order to protect our kids, to keep our kids safe, to get them to school. I mean, it's tough. I'm very much so like, before I own my businesses, I have to work Monday through Friday. And I'm an 8 to 5 kind of girl. Not even because, oh, that's like my preference. It's because I literally freaking have to. Daycare's not open on the weekends, you know? And I
Mm-hmm.
learned that very, very when she was very young. Like I have to work the schedule because I don't have a choice. I don't have family to take care of her. I don't have people to pick her up from school. It's on me.
Yeah. So when did you end up moving out of your brother's house?
I was, I started when I was 11. I would stay for a couple of weeks at a time. I had spent my whole summer going from middle school, so eighth grade into freshman year. I had spent my whole summer and I thought I was going to be able to live there. I thought it was like set in stone. And my mom came, I think like the weekend before school started and was like, nope, pack your stuff, you're coming home. And that was just traumatizing all in itself because I thought I was set, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And no, so from that point, I officially moved out. I'm going to say the middle of my freshman year,
Mm-hmm.
around that point, and I never went back.
Yeah. And after you had your baby girl, right? Baby girl?
Yes,
You were still living with your brother, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
I was. So that was that was a journey all in itself. I had told my sister-in-law first that I was pregnant because at that time she was the person that I was closest to. And she, she was like, "What do you need to do? What, what do you want to do?" It wasn't like, "Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that." What do you want to do? And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had to give the baby up. I felt like I had to do that. So she really stood by my side. And when I told her, I can't do that, she was like, okay, well, next step is telling, your brother that you're pregnant. And that's what I had to do. I knew that I was going to have to tell my family because I needed to get, the right insurance. I needed to go start going to the doctor. I needed to see where we were at.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my brother that was terrifying. Thought I was joking, and I was not. I told my sister at a Peter Piper, which is a pizza place in our area. I told her during lunch because I thought she was going to knock me out if I told her in anywhere that was not public. And although, again, we were not close at that time. So that was just even scarier. And I like to ruin holidays. So I told my dad on Easter.
Oh,
Also,
nice.
yeah, it's a tradition. I'm just kidding. I don't do it anymore. I went to therapy. But my toxic trait. But you know, I went through my whole pregnancy there, and yeah, it was a lot just on me. And I wanted it that way because it wasn't anybody else's responsibility. And I knew that. I knew that my pregnancy, my daughter, it was me in general. Like, although I was young and I was living under their roof, like, that does not mean that automatically, I expect them to buy her diapers and wake up at night. No, like, I knew it was on me.
Mm-hmm.
So they did think that I was going to give them the baby. That went on again for about 2 months. I did end up deciding myself that that was not going to happen. And around 16 weeks is when I told them I was not going to be giving up the baby. I had gotten a phone call, and okay, makes me kind of sad. I see everybody doing like the gender reveals and the big parties and all of that. Mine was sad. Mine was not like that. I literally celebrated the fact that I was going to have a girl by myself. I
Mm-hmm.
had gotten a call from the doctor. They had my results, and it was like that blood test that you do.
Yep.
And they were like, "Do you want to know the gender?" And I told them, "Yeah, tell me." They're like, "You're having a girl." Oh my gosh, just I was outside. I remember I was outside of my brother's house, and I was just started crying. I ran inside, and I was like, "I'm having a girl." And my sister was like, that's great. Mind you, I had already told them I was not going to be giving them the baby. She's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Walked away. So I celebrated literally by myself. And
Oh
I
my
remember leaving.
God.
I went to Burlington, okay, like a store here. And I shopped for a bunch of girl stuff because that was how I celebrated. Um,
Oh.
hmm and I at that time I didn't realize how sad it was, but I say it out loud and I'm like, poor me, you know?
Yeah, but also like to share that moment with yourself is also very special, especially when
Yeah.
the fact that you were a single mom. It's like it's a very special moment, and I'm sure you still remember probably that day so clearly that
I
it's
do.
like, and that was just, I think, foreshadowing, like the fact that it was just going to be you two. And also, by the way, you were 16 years old when you found out you were pregnant, right?
Yes, yes.
To be that age and have your head set that straight on everything, like, wow, wow,
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
and I really think it was a buildup of trauma. People even now, when I say, well, I don't just walk around like I'm 25 or oh, I'm not, when I was 19, oh, I'm 19. Like,
Hmm.
no, people have thought I was 30 for like the last 10 years, which is funny to me. But they're like, you're so mature for your age. And I'm like, it used to be a compliment. And now, because I've done so much mental health work, like, it's just trauma, guys. Like, it's
Yeah.
just trauma. But, and you're so right. Like, every time I marked my stance, like, it's her and I, and I love that because she doesn't remember those days when it was just her and I, but I do. I mean, my whole pregnancy, it was just me. There was nobody else to feel her kick, to go buy the clothes, to be prepared. Like, I had a really good friend at the time, and her family was very loving towards me. My sister, again, we were building our relationship at the time, though. Her and my sister, she's like her, I would consider her like her everything. My
Hmm.
sister plays the role of being her grandma, her aunt, her other mom. Like, she's the everything to my daughter, but that's because my daughter has nobody else
Hmm.
to love her that way. But at that time, like, my pregnancy was so frowned upon. Duh. I turned 17 in the middle of my pregnancy.
Hmm.
And I just knew that I wasn't going to fail her. I couldn't. I wasn't going to fail, and I was so sure of that. I was so adamant that nobody was going to look at me and be like, "Ugh, she's just a teen mom. Look at her. What a mess." I just
Hmm.
refused to think that anybody was going to look at me that way. I was still coaching cheerleading. I was a cheerleading coach for my nephew's football teams. And, again, living at my brother's house, like, I'm so grateful. I will always be grateful because they kept a roof over us. I
Hmm.
did not have them go out and buy diapers and formula. Like, that was all on me. Nobody can ever take that away from me because nobody supported my child physically, mentally, emotionally, but they gave us a roof, and that's everything. We could have, who knows?
Yeah.
I, I later, and I was so thankful because for me, I'm very like, I'm kind of woo woo, and I'm very universe and God, like everything happens
Hmm.
for a reason.
Yeah.
And my sister-in-law ended up having twins 2.5 months after I had my daughter.
Oh my God.
They had 3 kids, so they had 3 boys, and then they had their twins after me. So living there, I had my daughter, who was still a newborn, plus their twins, plus the 3 boys. And because I lived there, I was pretty much like a live-in nanny.
Hmm.
So I'm not gonna say I just sat there and didn't earn my way. Like, I might not have paid rent, but nannies are
Yeah.
luxuries, okay?
Yes.
Live-in nannies who clean and cook and take care of your kids, they're a luxury. So
Yes.
I feel like even though, like, I feel like I still earned my way because I didn't just sit there and expect everybody to flock to me and attend to my child and attend to me. No, it was hard. It was really
Hmm.
hard. And that was something else I had to work out in therapy was I look back and I was very thankful, even being so young, I still worked. I had been babysitting since I was a teenager, and I worked at Golden Corral. Okay, if we all know what Golden Corral is, I worked there. I saved my money, and I didn't have to work for 2 years of my daughter's life, the first 2 years.
Nice.
And yeah, and it was very thankful, but it was hard. I mean, I worked part time at one point. I was going to school to be an EMT, and I worked like, 2 days out of the week on the weekend. But every time else, like, I was earning my way because I felt like I had to. And it's hard when I look back because I was so stressed and I was trying to go to college to prove a point. I was trying to do all the things that so that I didn't look like I was a failure.
Yeah.
And I just drowned more in it. So I
Hmm.
was crying, I was stressed, I was exhausted, and not just from having a baby, but because I had this baby and I could barely enjoy it because I still deserved to enjoy my baby.
Yeah, of course. Did you end up graduating high school?
I did, yeah. So I was
Hmm.
already set. I laughed about this with someone the other day. I said, yeah, I graduated in 3 years. And they were like, okay, was it because you were really good at school and you liked it, or because you hated it and you wanted to get out? I was like, yeah, option B. I hated it. I wanted to get the heck out. I wanted to run away from my family, my home. I wanted to get the heck out of here. There was nothing for me. And I just wanted to be done. Like high school, I had so much clouding my brain. I could not see myself as an adult. Like I I had contemplated suicide for, for as many years as I can remember. I was bulimic for from middle school until I got pregnant with my daughter. And so I was battling so many things in secrecy because nobody knew these things about me.
Yeah.
I was watching my mom, drown herself, watching my dad, they're fighting, the chaos. And I was like, I got to get out of here. I can't
Hmm.
keep doing this. I knew also living with my brother, however long another year of them, I had to take care of their kids. I had to, and this was before I was pregnant, I knew that I was going to have to keep living my life for everybody else but me. And I couldn't see the next day. I couldn't see a week from them. I didn't even have a dream. People would be like, oh, what's your dream? And I don't even know. I'm just trying to survive. Like I was in survival mode.
Yeah.
So I made the choice. I said, you know what? I'm going to graduate early. And I was in sports medicine. I was a sports medicine trainer in high school. And I talked to my trainers. I went from one high school my first year, graduated from another. And I said, look, I have to get out of here. They knew the life that I lived. I said, make me great, help me be great so that I can get a scholarship and get out because that's going to be my only way. And
Hmm.
I did. So I talked to my counselor in school. I said, what do I need to do? And thankfully, like middle school me had done a few extra things that helped. I took a summer class. I took like an after school class and an early morning class. And honestly, graduating 3 years, I was not top of anything, but I got the heck out of there. And that's
Yeah.
all that mattered to me.
Yeah.
So I graduated early. I was already on track to do so. And then I found out I was pregnant. My gosh, it was about 4 months before school ended. So I was pregnant in high school.
Hmm.
They had somehow found out, I think because I had told my counselor, like, hey, fun fact, I'm pregnant, just want to let you know. And something about they had to report it. I don't know. There was one day though, I got pulled out of class and they were trying to send me to the school here. It was almost like an alternative school, but for girls who are pregnant. And I
Hmm.
was like, absolutely not. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm almost done here, guys. Like, y'all won't even know that I'm pregnant. I'm not even gonna show. I'm gone. So again, that was a journey all in itself. My counselor really had to fight. They tried to not let me walk because supposedly it was dangerous. I said, girl, please. I showed up in 5-inch heels and walked down those stairs and across the stage. I might have had a panic attack because there were so many of us in that room. I remember my counselor looking at me and being like, please don't pass out. Please don't pass out. You've worked too hard. You've come too far. And she was like, I'll get you a chair. I said, no, I'm not weak. I don't need a chair. I'm okay. But I did it.
Nice.
Yeah. So I graduated. Thank God. I went to college for about a year and a half and I was doing it for everyone else. It was not me. I hated it. And I am not shitting on school by any means. It just was not part of my journey at that time. I decided to go and get my EMT license, which I did. They're just heavily and severely, oh my gosh, it's heartbreaking, underpaid. I think
Hmm.
all over, but especially in El Paso. And I finished my class, but I had to come to the realization that I cannot go make $8.50 an hour, work
Oh
three
my
jobs,
God.
still barely survive, and my daughter not have me on Christmas. I couldn't do it to her.
That is what EMTs make?
Yes,
Are you
yes.
kidding me? They
I
save lives.
I know. You are like
What the
first on scene.
hell? Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God. Okay, so quick tidbit about myself. I was in a car accident where I almost died, okay?
Oh
And
my gosh.
I remember the EMT that was beside me. We wrecked into a tree and
Oh my
I was
gosh.
awake for it all. So she was telling me, like, okay, they have to break this window. Okay, they have to break
Mm-hmm.
this window. Okay, they're going to cut the top of the car off. Okay, now they're going to
Yeah.
cut your seat out. And it was like she was the like angel in the whole
Yeah,
thing,
she's your
right?
lifeline.
Because she
Yeah.
was like keeping me calm and letting me know. So a year later, I decided we were actually going to a homecoming football game. I had graduated the year before, but the alumni always came back to homecoming. So
Oh, yeah.
the year after that, I was like, I'm going to face my fears. I'm going to go to this football game. I'm going to go to where I was going to eat afterwards, after the football game. And, I was sitting there and I had no clue who these people were. Like there was like or
Wow.
the car was on fire. A passerby put it out with a fire extinguisher. Have no clue
Oh
who
my
that is. They
gosh.
saved our life because I called 911, but then I passed out. But then I woke up again when they got there.
Oh,
So
wow.
a year later I go to this place. It was called Eaton Park. It's like Denny's. And I'm sitting there, in the back with my friends, goofing around, whatever, like, yay, I made it, whatever. So I go to leave, and the EMT that was holding my head the
Oh
whole
my
time was
gosh.
fucking in the front of the restaurant. And I went up to them
I
and
got chills.
with tears in my eyes, and I was like, I
Mm.
don't know. Or I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I messed up the story. So I go up to them, and I always had thanked the EMTs or firefighters because they do God's work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so
No,
I
they
went
do.
up to thank them, and I had thought, like, maybe one day I would meet them. So I went up to thank them, and I was like, I was in a car accident about a year ago. Somebody was, holding my head the whole time. And it was,
Mm.
people don't tell you enough how amazing people you are. And like you impact people's lives. And this woman goes, honey, were you the passenger or the driver? And I was like, I was the passenger. And she goes, it was me. And I just went like white. So I went over, of course, I paid for their meal and everything. But I was
Oh,
like, what the hell? Like, how strange of a story, right? But every time I meet
wow.
EMTs or firefighters, I like my heart just explodes because, like I
Wow.
said, they're angels. And the fact that I can't, like, you just blew my mind. You just blew my, I
Yeah.
cannot believe that's all they're paid, because holy
Yeah.
shit, they save lives every day, every day.
Yeah. And it's scary work that they do. I mean, I have chills, like just hearing your story. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And a lot of people, though, if you ask any EMT, they don't do it for the money. Anybody that is an EMT, even paramedics, that's about 2 years worth of schooling. You learn a lot more. EMT is like where you first start. And so it's the basics, but I mean, you're still keeping them alive. Like it's crazy the amount of stuff that you're trained to do. And then as you move on, but again, even paramedics, I think, are heavily underpaid.
Hmm.
Um, but it's amazing stuff. My sister, and myself, we were all volunteer firefighters. So
Hmm.
my brother, he was a volunteer firefighter for 11 years and he was a lieutenant. During his assault, he was actually a lieutenant and he was still a lieutenant even afterwards. My sister joined, she was there for about 2.5, 3 years. And then I joined as a junior because watching them be fucking badasses, it lit
Hmm.
me up inside. Like
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. I like that adrenaline. There is something different, and typically people that are in that realm, that are in that industry, right? They will tell you that there is a different kind of adrenaline that you get from that. And it's not that you like to see people hurt. It's not that you want them to get hurt. People are going to get hurt regardless, but it's a different kind of adrenaline when you are the one, running into the burning building if you're a firefighter, or when you're the EMT and you're showing up on scene because you have so many things going through your head. That alone is a skill set. Like,
Hmm.
not everybody can do that. We're not even talking about the hands-on trying to keep them alive part.
Yeah.
But, I was a junior firefighter for almost 2 years. Once my brother had gotten out, unfortunately, I had to also, and then I got pregnant, all the things.
Yeah.
But I still remember that, and I was like, okay, I liked the medical portion more versus like the running into burning buildings.
Hmm.
The brush fires and all of that, the cars, I like that, but I really wanted the medical portion. And that's when I decided to take that class. But man, and they are badass people. They just are. Like it was awesome. But I even know, there's an emergency one here. To work with our fire department, you do have to be You do have to go through the fire academy and all of that. But, we have like another emergency, like a private company, but it's not good here. So El Paso is just not the place to be a medic. I love our medics. It makes me appreciate them more.
Yeah.
Even so, though, outside of there, I'm gonna say anywhere from $8 to $15 is typically what they make an hour.
Damn. That is just
Under
like,
damn paid.
oh my God, yes. Oh my
Yeah, they don't
God,
do it for the
yes.
money. So that alone, though, that like it shaped me as a person. I'm forever thankful because I met one of my absolute best friends there. She's like, you know, she's everything to me. I love that course. I learned so much. I also realized that as a mom, I was not as mentally strong as I was before
Yeah.
because when I was doing my clinicals, I had my first pediatric, and wow, it destroyed me. I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do this
Yeah.
right now because it hits different.
Hmm.
And I know there are moms out there, so I'm not speaking for everybody, but for me, I was like, I cannot see this every day and not bring it home. I'm too much of an empath.
Yeah.
And this was before therapy, but even now, 4 years into therapy, it's just, I won't go back. Maybe once my kids are grown, but not right now. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. They say that about NICU nurses too, that once you
Oh
have
yeah,
kids, like it's a really hard job to do.
yeah.
And
I
a
can't
lot
even
of people
imagine.
end up switching because they can't handle it. I mean, because you got a kid, like you automatically put
Hmm.
yourself in that parent's shoes. Like anytime you
Yep.
hear a story about something, harmful or, whatever, like even worse happening to a kid, like I get mad when I'm scrolling TikTok and I see, like, it's
Yes.
like, I don't want to get mad. I want to feel for the person and stuff. But if
Hmm.
I sit there and I watch a whole story about a kid that got hurt or whatever, I literally won't sleep that night. Like I'm like,
Exactly.
it just, I totally understand that. So back
Yeah.
back on track with your life, girl. So you when did you end up leaving your brother's house?
So I was right before my daughter turned 2.
Mhm.
I think it was about 18 or so, and my sister and I always talk about our relationship in the sense of like we had a lot of building to do. So she and her husband, they had not had kids yet. Or no, I'm sorry, she had just had her baby. Her baby was little. She had her daughter a year after mine. And they were like, we have space, like, just come. You don't have to pay anything. We don't want that for you. They wanted to get me out. What
Mhm.
was so crazy was it was almost like when somebody's in an abusive relationship and you're watching it from the outside and you know that something's off. You know that they're not being taken care of. That was how everybody saw me. And
Yeah.
I mean, people from the football team that we coached on, family, my sister, like you saw it. And that I didn't realize. I swear it was kind of like almost like manipulation.
Yeah.
So I was terrified to leave and I did not do it in the best way, but I was so scared of the outlash and telling them by myself. This was before I was who I am today. But my sister came over, they helped me pack my stuff. I didn't have very much. I had nothing really. Our clothes, my old car, like I didn't have much of anything. And that's when I had told my sister-in-law, like, hey, I'm gonna go live with them. I look back now and it was kind of a dickhead move, but I had to do what I had to do, okay?
Well, but like
And
them using you for all of that wasn't the nicest thing either. Like,
yeah,
honestly, even living in their house, people pay live-in nannies. Like, people pay
yeah,
live-in nannies. So
yeah,
it's almost like they were having their cake and eating it too, and
yeah,
taking advantage of a young girl that felt like she didn't have any other choice.
yeah, yeah. And they knew that. They had that over me. I'm not gonna say that I'm not grateful for what they did. I'll always be grateful. But now that I've grown from it and I am the boundary person that I am, like it was not right. It wasn't. I would never do that to somebody. Like I
Hmm.
put myself in their shoes and I would never do that to anybody. And to me, that's where I noticed that that feels wrong. Like if I feel like that's not an okay move, if I myself wouldn't do it, I don't think somebody else should either.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what my sister and my brother-in-law wanted to do was to get me the hell out of there. and finally allow me to actually have a chance on myself. And I did. I had gotten a part-time job. I had to put my daughter in daycare for the first time. That was hard, but there was an awesome daycare in that area because it was it all worked out. Everything came to pieces. And because I had gotten that job, I had actually kind of used it to my advantage and said, hey, I'm driving from one side to the other side of town. That's a lot for me, so I'm just going to live over here.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. So that's really where everything kind of started taking off for me. For the first time ever, I was worried about just myself and my daughter. I still helped like my sister with her daughter when I could or certain days, but it was never like the obligation of, oh, you're gonna live here, my kid is your kid too now. No, like we had that respect for each other still.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot, again, all of this was building up towards trauma because when I had my daughter, I wouldn't let anybody help me. I didn't want it. Like I was breastfeeding and I breastfed my daughter for 2 years, a little over 2 years, because I couldn't get her off of me. That was not part of the plan, but she
Yeah.
wouldn't leave. She wouldn't get off me. And breastfeeding is hard.
Yeah.
Okay. I am I am very much so the person that's like, you do whatever makes you happy. I don't give a shit what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care in general in life. So for me, I chose to breastfeed and had no idea what I was doing. Just like my pregnancy, my late, I feel like I had no idea what I was doing. And that was hard, because I was trying to manage all of that and learn all of it. But I had finally had like that breath of it was just her and I without having somebody down our throats. And I guess being with my sister was like the first time that I felt like I hadn't totally screwed up, like it wasn't totally my fault that I was being taken advantage of. And
Mm-hmm.
I started really learning more about myself and being able to be the mom that I wanted because I wasn't as stressed. It wasn't as like frustrated. And I didn't have this like anger and resentment built up inside.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just my daughter and I most of the time because they worked. And so, I would go to work 3 times a week and she would go to daycare, which was really hard and making it sound like it was easy or something, but it was really hard. And I would cry every day. I would take her and she would cry and I would cry. It was rough.
Oh.
We were just so attached to each other. All
Yeah.
the nighttime feedings, it was her and I. All of the doctor's appointments, it was her and I. Like all of the late nights, the early mornings, the sleep regressions, like the everything, it was just me. So the daycare situation, it's not like there was somebody else I could call and cry to because I was taking our baby to daycare and I was heartbroken. Like, no, it was me doing it. And there was nobody, as much as my sister tried to be, that person for me. And I know if there was an emergency, she would be there, but I just I never wanted to rely on anyone because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, my daughter was mine. And that was from my pregnancy until even now. I have been with my husband for a while, but the doctor's appointments, they're mine. Right now, she's struggling with some stomach issues. That's on me. Trying to find a solution, it's on me. She has ADHD. That's on me. Like her meds, me. All of it falls on me.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I want to say, especially for our circumstance, like I'm grateful because I've seen how, on the other side of it with my stepson, I watch my husband co-parent and we co-parent with his mom, and that's a whole other journey. So it's not even that I'm sitting here like, oh, poor me, but I will say like moms go through it. And I think that's something that's not really talked about is the mom who, maybe doesn't have that other side, but then remarries there again, a dad can be great and step up. I will say my husband loves my daughter. He has stepped up. But at the end of the day, you still have this like obligation where a lot of things for me are on me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just kind of how I expect it to be. He's still there for the awards and like the big things. He's there at night. He is a good person. But the mental load, I think for most moms in general, whether you have a partner or not, it falls on us. And
Yeah.
that never stops.
Yeah. I agree with you.
But I don't think I would have ever built up to who I was if I would have if I would have stayed there any longer, because I was breaking and I had a lot of mental health issues that were just pushed back so far. And I remember in 2019, me and my toxic trait, this was an accident. I did, but I ruined I ruined Thanksgiving because I had a mental breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where I found myself. I had lived with my sister for about a year, met my husband, and things moved fast. Okay. We look back and we're like, maybe we should have taken a little bit more time, but everything happens for a reason. And I lived with him about 9 months later. Okay. I don't, hopefully there's not too much judgment on that. But again, I look back and I'm like, whoops. I think because we both had kids, it was just like things just really took off. And we introduced them slowly, we introduced our life slowly, but once everything fell together, it felt right.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a mental breakdown Thanksgiving 2019, and I had realized like, wow, I'm a little fucked up and I don't
Yeah.
want to be. And I struggled with that so much. My daughter was about 4. She just turned 4. My stepson's 4.5. And I had to go to therapy. I've got my first big girl job, so to say. I had my full-time job. My career was taking off. But then there was a balance to that also. I was trying to balance, home life, being a mom, being a wife, being, the maid, the nanny, the cooking, the everything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
plus integrating a career. And I finally went to therapy, and holy moly, did I learn a lot about myself, because it was a lot to unpack. I don't think I realized how much was wrong with me, because if we look back at it, my parents should have put me in therapy when I was 9, because it
Yeah.
took a toll on me.
Yeah.
And so I had years of trauma and abandonment issues, which I didn't expect. I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And my therapist had tried to tell me, hey, you might have ADHD. And I was like, absolutely not. You want to list me whatever you want? Sure. But I, for some reason, was like, I don't have ADHD. Don't bring it up. I don't want to hear about it. And sometimes I wish you would have pushed a little bit more on that, because then I spent a few more years trying to fix my anxiety and my depression. And like, newsflash, fun fact, it was ADHD. But I
Yeah.
didn't accept that until my daughter's doctor looked at me and said, hey, it's hereditary. And I was like, oh gosh.
They called you out.
He did. That's all it took me. Just call me out on my shit. I like it. I need it. I'm a tough love person. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, my bad. I get you now. So that was a journey. That's actually something I'm still currently working on. But I became, I always say, I became the person that I needed when I was a kid. I became the person that I wish I would have had, in a sense of, my kids are first. My kids are everything to me, everything to me. I would be lying if I said, like, it's not hard, because it's really hard. Like my husband, he had his own traumas to unpack. Like, we lived different lives, and he had both of his parents and whatever, but he still had his own shit. He
Mm-hmm.
went to therapy and he was diagnosed as bipolar. Like, so here we are, just a couple of messed up people trying to create a family, but I think a lot of us are. And
Yeah.
that wasn't like really said out loud. So then it was like I was trying to just push it down, and we couldn't. So now, like, we've worked really hard. We worked really backwards, because our relationship was not always healthy. And that's something I'm really big on too, because for so long I was trying to find, like, who else has felt like this, as a mom, as a stepmom, as a woman. Like, I see these TikToks, and everybody's talking about, oh, I found my fairy tale man, and he put me in a Tahoe and made me a stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, well, that's fucking awesome, but that's not my life.
Yeah.
And then I see, the women who, they had to leave their situation because they needed to, they had to. And I respect that. Again, you do what works for you. But like, for me, my situation was, we fought through the toxic era, the demanding area. Like, we fought through so many hard things. Where's that shown? And so I really wanted to be the person that shows all of those angles of life, like, from being the girl with a fucked up childhood to getting pregnant young to finding somebody and it not being picture perfect. Like, we're not perfect now, of course. I mean, that's unrealistic in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we worked backwards though. But we've been doing that from the beginning. We both came in with kids. We're not technically married. We do life our own way. And it's been a ride, and sometimes I would feel bad that, my daughter had to start with me. She had to build with me. And I felt guilty for that for a long time, but I've never made her problems my problems. But, as close as we are, the relationship that we have, I'm really big on communication. I'm really big on mental health. And as a mom, I think that's so important because I want to make sure that whether it's my daughter or my stepson, that they have like that open communication with us,
Yeah.
I talk about my journey with them. I'm very open, like, hey, mommy's brain, I feel like it's screaming inside. And so when you guys are screaming, that's a lot on me. So let's work together because we're a family and we need to take care of each other. And my daughter will also tell me, Mom, my brain is screaming because we trigger each other. We overstimulate each other. Uh, so we had to work through it. And I just think that's so important because nowadays, like as parents, even if you had a perfect childhood, if you had a fucked up childhood, there comes a point where it's on us. There comes a
Yeah.
point where it's a choice, it's an option. My husband worked for Budweiser, okay, for almost 9 years, 8, 9 years. When I was 19, I thought that sounded like fun. I thought it was just a great job. Like I thought he was just doing life, being responsible, and he wasn't. Okay, fun fact, fast forward. But coming from like a family of alcoholics, I didn't know that. It didn't like
Yeah.
click somehow. I missed that memo. And so like our views on drinking were super different.
Mm-hmm.
He recently stopped drinking though, and he's been sober now for almost 8 months, which is
Nice.
huge because
Nice.
I dreamed of a life where alcohol was not a factor. Like I throw badass birthday parties for my kids, okay? But I don't serve alcohol. Like I'm not buying it. We're not gonna have it, but I'm gonna have a Jack Skellington on stilts come. So if y'all want to join us, like I got a bunch of food, we're hanging out. But I'm trying to give my kids the life like that I didn't have, but then more on top of that. Like I'm trying to learn from who I didn't have and what I didn't want to be and give that to them. And that's just it's awesome to see that coming into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you went through, oh God, so much at such a young age, and then honestly just snapped out of all of the young bullshit and became this beautiful woman all of a sudden. Like it was like the mommy hormones kicked in, and that was that for you. Like that was
Yeah.
that. So you said you had a corporate job. What do you do now?
Yes, I did. So I've been in administration for 9 years. I
Mm-hmm.
started off when I was working part-time. I was working at a hair salon doing front desk. Then I went to administration. I had worked as an office manager and a communications manager for a large insurance company. And from that point during COVID, I had lost my job. And it felt like everything tumbled down. Oh my gosh, I thought I was set for life. Like it's so funny. I look back and I just thought that was it. This was my career. I was going to rock the shit out of it. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I wanted to be what I was dreaming of. That was my dream,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny. And so COVID happened. Yeah, absolutely not. Whoops. Took back on as many people did. And I saved a bunch of money during that time. Weird, but I saved as much as I could. I got really, really smart with budgeting, and I spent that time with my daughter. Also went batshit crazy, so we're not gonna pretend like that was perfect. But I had gotten a job for a pretty large financial corporation, and I had gotten a promotion. This was last year. I had gotten a promotion, but I had to move. I was going to have to move out of El Paso, which meant that we were going to be leaving my stepson. And it came to a point where I had to pick my career or my family, and I chose my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I started two businesses last year. Well, one and then the other one started the beginning of this year. But I started a virtual communications management business. So basically virtual assistant, a virtual communications manager for service-based businesses. And I run their administration, their email marketing, really like all the background work that they don't need to be focusing on so that they can focus on growing their business. Also, I have that business strategist in me. So I have a client right now and we're really starting from the ground up. And I've been able to not only be her virtual assistant, but be like her all over, like whatever she's needing me for, a business plan, we're making goals together. And I love that. I love helping people kick ass in business. It's just my favorite thing, watching them grow. It's beautiful. I also started my life coaching business for women, and I teach them confidence and boundaries because I am a boundary girl. I am the black sheep of my family, obviously, based off of my story. And I wanted to do something in mental health, but I also wanted to give people like my life skills, like the shit that I taught myself that nobody else taught me. I
Yeah.
built the courage to cut off my dad, to unfortunately cut off my brother because those relationships turned very toxic. And I've taught my husband, who is a Scorpio, mind you. He is incredibly difficult. He is
I'm
very
one
like,
too. I know all too
oh,
well. I'm
okay.
one
There you
too.
go. There you go. I'm surrounded by them. My sister, my daughter, my husband. Y'all are awesome, but you're a lot. And
Oh
when you
yeah,
guys are
no.
set in your ways, you're
I'm
set.
married to a Leo, so imagine that. We're both like,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
it gets tough. It gets tough.
Yeah. So see, y'all are, when you say, no, this is it, that's it, bitch. Like,
Yeah.
don't try to go around it. And I've taught him boundaries. Like, I've started to show him, hey, this isn't healthy. Hey, you deserve better. Hey, think of it like this. And then I kind of let him do it because before it was like, this is wrong. This is wrong. I had to learn how to communicate myself. And I was like, if I can help him, I've taught my sister boundaries because my sister was my dad's punching bag, unfortunately. She took one for the fucking team. Like, she was the everything to everybody because she's a people pleaser and it was killing her. It was breaking her. So it's taken us some time, but I've taught her boundaries. And all of this was accidentally. Like,
Hmm.
I really didn't even realize the boundaries that I was setting because at one point they weren't called boundaries. They were called being selfish. They weren't called like, oh, you're not gonna bend over backwards for your family. No,
Yeah.
no, I am not, because
Yeah.
that's not healthy. Like, I will no longer be a people pleaser. The way that I see it, I am going to give people my everything. I love so hard. And the relationships that I had around me, all of them, family, friends, even, romantic relationships before, like I was giving every piece of me and I was never getting anything back. But I wasn't doing it because I wanted something back. But once you grow to a certain point, you start to realize that that's not healthy. Like one-sided relationships are not healthy.
Yeah.
And I had to put up the boundaries. I got it. I'm not going to have people who are not good around my kids, period. I've always felt like that, though. Always, always. I didn't lose a lot of friends because I got pregnant. I lost a lot of friends because I knew that I didn't want that around my kid. And it's like that even now. So I want women to have hands on, real life, raw experience with a coach who gets it. And I always, tell everybody around me, even if I didn't go through the exact situation, we're going to identify the boundaries that need to be implemented. We're going to create and work on your confidence so that you can actually implement them and stick to them. Because boundaries, like they sometimes, depending on the season of life, they can be changed. Like you have to do what works for you. Nobody has to just go and oh, I cut my dad off, so you have to also. No, we just need to find the boundary that works for your life, what feels good for you. Like sometimes, unfortunately, that means cutting somebody off, but sometimes that means you're just limiting that. That's still a boundary. And a lot of people, we're just not informed of that.
Well, you are just a badass, dude. Like what you've been through and what you've accomplished right now and what you're doing with your life is freaking pretty incredible. I hope you realize that.
Oh, thank you, Jackie.
You're just
Ugh.
hearing your story. It just sounds like You were like, and I know you're going to be like, oh my God, shut up. But it literally sounds like you were some kind of like special being put on earth, because most people that have been through the stuff that you've been through would not be where you're at right now. They would not be where you're at. They wouldn't have made those decisions. They might have needed way more help. They could have crumbled. And you just battled through all of it. Like, you are just one badass woman. Truly.
Oh, I got chills. Thank you. I am working on that of being able to take compliments because for a long time, and that was like my intrusive thoughts that I had to work through, the imposter syndrome. Like I just felt like, well, I mean, everybody goes through hard things. Like we all go through hard things, and you're not, it could have been worse. I battled that a lot. Could have been worse. Like, don't complain. You lived in a normal neighborhood. Like you had two parents, kind of ish, sort of, not really, but like there are so many things that I battled through until I finally realized, like, no, you're right. Like I did work my ass off to get here, and it was not beautiful. There was a lot of trauma. I put my daughter through things that, when two people are typically married and they have a house and then they bring a baby in and they have established careers, I kept comparing myself to that and I felt guilty because I didn't give her that. But like, no, everything happened for a reason. I know my daughter was brought to me for a reason so that I could be this person because I was out of control and I would have never become who I was if I didn't have her. A fun fact, again, my woo-woo side, I did a medium call during COVID around that time. And I reconnected with my mom, and it's weird, okay? I got some closure though. It was a beautiful call, and she had told me, I just saw your mom and your daughter high five, like on the way down, basically like tagging each other in. And that always like gives me that inspiration, like I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to go through what I did. And whether I touch one person's life or, I can reach as many people as possible, the young moms, the teen moms, the older moms, like we just need to know that we're all fucking here for a reason and we deserve to live our lives based off of who we want to be, not who we thought we had to be, not who we were, raised by. We don't have to be the environment that we grew up in or that we even had a year ago. If your shit was fucked up a year ago, 2 years ago, you don't have to be that person. And if anybody holds that against you, fuck them. Like
Yeah.
get them out of your life. Like, and that is why I think I've become who I am today, and I stand by that. Like, if someone wants to call me a bitch, yeah, I am. If that threatens you, if that makes you feel insecure, sure I am. And I want everybody to understand that you can be that person. Whatever bullshit you might have created or was created before you, like this mom stuff, it's hard. It's fucking hard. And if you want to be a stay-at-home mom or you want to climb that corporate ladder, you want to own businesses, like I don't care what your background is, you fucking fight for it. You fight for it. Go to therapy because I think therapy is everything. Get yourself a life coach, get yourself a business mentorship, like whatever it is, it's so important that we don't give up on ourselves.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I think, first of all, the woo-woo crap, it's right up my alley. Like
Oh, I love that shit.
I talked to a psychic medium and she told me, people kept telling me I'm creative with my hands, I'm creative with my hand. And I'm like, and the one, like, I literally hear that all the time. Well, I'm a hairstylist, or I was. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm a hairstylist. Of course, yeah. You could have looked me up and found that. But this one woman, after my mental breakdown, says to me, no. She's like, you are like me. You've had intuition
Oh,
your whole
wow.
life. You can speak to your spirit guides. You just don't know how. Everything that you've ever felt was supernatural or odd or an intuition has been correct. And
Wow.
it was like this crazy moment. But I see your story and the medium saying like she saw your mom high-fiving your daughter in, and you know what I think of when I think of that? I think, your mom was sick. When you pass away, you're your purest form, okay? And she knew that you were going to need something to do something to help you the way that she couldn't when she was here, and that was your
Yeah.
daughter.
Yeah.
And it's just, that is just a beautiful thought to me. That's a beautiful
Yeah.
thought.
Oh, thank you. I know I'm all tearing up. That always makes me emotional because it's heavy, and you have
Hmm.
you have such an awesome energy to you. I remember like, when we first started talking, like our first phone call together, I am huge on energy because I'm big on intuition,
Hmm.
and that's something else like our intuition deserves a seat at our decision table because a lot of people, including myself before, would like, oh, pass it off. Like, no, the gut feelings are real. It's your intuition. Listen
Yeah.
to it. But like energy is so real. And I always laugh like I wasn't born like, oh, communications is my shit. I'm so good at it. No, it's my trauma. My trauma created it and made me really good at communicating. But that's okay. I'll use it. I'll use it as my skill set. And I can pick up on that from you.
Hmm.
Like that's why I was so stoked to be here with you, to talk to you, to just, share my story and do it with you because you have that amazing energy to you. Like there is just something that radiates from you. And I love anybody that listens to that little bit of woo-woo. Like it's kind of life-changing. And so I'm really glad you dove into that because it can kind of scare people. We're all gifted.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
We're all
Hmm.
gifted. It's just some people have that heightened. And then if you really, really work on it, if you keep working on it, oh fuck, there's the light workers. Like that's what people like you and the mediums that we go to, that is what they're here for. So I know not everybody's too big on that. I love that shit because it gives me hope that there's something bigger than just us.
Oh my goodness. I had so much fun with her. And we talked for like 10 more minutes about all the woo woo stuff, but that will have to be saved for another episode for all of you engaged in that. But my goodness, her story, the stuff she went through, she is so strong. Do you not agree with me? Like, what an inspiration to so many people, and she's still so young. Wow. At that age, I wasn't in that mindset. What a beautiful, beautiful soul. And what a she was just her energy, everything about her was so amazing. We had so much fun together. Thank you so much for listening. I will leave Shelby's info in the description so you can find her. Thank you for listening to the Mama Jack podcast. You can find me on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, all the Mama Jack. If you have any suggestions, if you want to be on the show, message me, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Please rate or review. That would be amazing. Love to know what you think. And thank you so much for listening.